All right, I'm giving you my super hot take on Trump taking one to the ear. Guy told me about 5 minutes ago, did you hear? They shot him in the ear. I was like, what? Yeah, come on in, look. And he showed me on the TV, and I see a picture of Trump with his hand all in solidarity up in the air, like I still support the American people, and they try to put me in jail, and they try to kill me, but I'll never stop. And the iconic image with him with some blood streaming down his ear there. It was a rally in Pennsylvania, I guess. I was like, what? My first words to this is my neighbor, and he had someone over. I said, this seems like a setup. The fact that it was just an earshot, this seems like a setup. Like they have a little micro explosive firecracker behind his ear ready to go off, and they fire a shot. I hear they hit someone else in the crowd. Maybe with the shot that went through his ear, maybe with the first shot that missed. And they have a little explosive device, so it's real blood streaming down his face, and someone got shot, so you know there was a real bullet involved. But the timed explosion of the device was hooked up to the same trigger of the guy that was pulling it when the sniper sent one whizzing past his head, and that one whizzing past his head could have been 5 feet away, but hit someone in the audience. And when he pulls the trigger to send one in that direction, it triggers the explosion. Because what are the chances? It's at least 1 in 10,000, if not 1 in 100,000. When you're taking a shot at a head, you either hit or you miss. What's the chances? Well, you did hit him, but you still missed. About 1 in 10,000, if not 1 in 100,000. You try and get downrange and make a shot like that, you're either gonna hit or miss 9,999 times for every one time that you just graze the ear. That's what those chances are. And what happens is this gives Trump a whole new power. Power is anything that allows you to achieve your objectives despite resistance or obstacles that stand between you and your objectives. A lot of different things meet that definition of power. Sex, firepower, money. There are many things that can allow you to achieve your objective. If I'm trying to take all your money, give me all your money. Fuck you. I pull out some firepower and suddenly you go, okay, here's my wallet. You use that power that overcame the obstacle and the resistance that stood between you and your objective of taking my money. Suddenly, I'm no longer objecting. I'm no longer an obstacle and resisting. I give you the money. That's power. Trump has a new power. Just like every other problem, reaction, solution scenario, it allows them afterwards to do something that would have been vehemently opposed before the problem. And what this may be leading to is a new Christian Reich, a new conservative, tyrannical movement. Just like the libtards, except 10 times as worse. Because when there's a clash between the libtards and the Christian conservatives, it's real easy to see who's going to win that one. Some of them are armed to the teeth and know how to skin a buck. The others don't. And so this problem that will create a reaction within the public to allow Trump to implement solutions that they previously would have resisted and opposed, like lock her up, like drain the swamp and all that shit. Some of the very Christian supporters, some of the very patriots that support him the most, if he just started rounding people up and throwing them in jail, those same people that are his mainstream supporters would say, whoa, pump the brakes. We got to give them their due process. In our, all those freedom-loving, flag-waving, God-fearing, gun-toting, Bible-thumping, conservative Christian Republicans that are his supporters. There are things he can now do that they would have opposed and been a resistance to him. And said, no, you can't just round people up and throw them in Gitmo. But now, hell yeah, he can just round people up and throw them in Gitmo. They tried to kill him. See what this is doing? You see the power he now has? He now has a bank account full of money, power. That's one form of power. and he's going to spend it. Whether or not he was in on this setup, and it was all a setup from the beginning or not, he is now in possession of a whole new level of power, and there's zero chance that he's not going to spend it. Which means his movement, his base, is now going to do things that would have elicited some sort of response from his supporters that would have given him resistance. The obstacles have been removed. No one will oppose him or object or provide resistance that stands between him and his objective. That power he's now been granted will overwhelmingly dissolve that resistance and obstacle that stands between them and achieving their objective. Had to pause the video for a minute. People were looking at me a little weird, like, what the fuck is this guy tripping on? I see what's coming. This is my super hot take. Literally 5 minutes ago, I was shown on the news. And this was my first gut instinct response, that this seems like a setup. This is the kind of thing that they do, the wizards, the puppet masters who pull the strings in society. This is the kind of thing that they do. And I said to the guy, I was there after 9/11, so were you? He's like, yeah, I was right there when it happened in New York. And he's got the accent to prove it. So maybe I'll just cut this video here, make it short. Gave you the definition of power, an explanation of the new power that he is in possession of, and whether or not he was in on it from the beginning and it's all a setup, he's now in possession of that power. Him and his group, his entourage, the people that support him, the Trump movement, the Trump campaign, and the Trump supporters are now in a new possession of a new power. They got a giant bank account overflowing with some new money, some new currency that they're going to spend. Whether or not he was in on it and it was a setup from the beginning, he's still in possession of that newfound power. And thus, you can expect to see programs be rolled out that people would have previously resisted, and now, hell no, let them do it. Yeah, go ahead with that. Same stuff they would have resisted and said, whoa, pump the brakes. You can't just go around rounding people up without a trial and throwing them in Gitmo. Well, now, hell yeah, he can. They tried to kill him. He can fucking round them up and throw them in Gitmo. We'll give him a real speedy trial, like 2 seconds. I don't know what it's going to be, but it may lead to this Christian Reich. You know, like the Fourth Reich, that tyrannical dictatorship in Germany. A new version of it rising up here in the United States, and people will be all in support of it because they've seen the deterioration of our culture and our whole society, our culture of consciousness being dissolved and rotted from within. And so when there's a backlash and the pendulum swings back the other direction so hard, a lot of people are going to be in support of it. But some of those same people would have pumped the brakes and questioned and said, hey, maybe we shouldn't go that far that fast. Now, there'll be no one that says that. There'll be no resistance. And I remind people like David Nino Rodriguez and all these Trump supporters of Operation Warp Speed. They're engaged in a level of cognitive dissonance when they say, yeah, I still support Trump. Even though he brought out the vax, they'll start spitting out the same kind of bullshit they do when you ask him, so why didn't he drain the swamp? What's he going to do this time that he didn't get to do the first time? Well, the first time he couldn't drain the swamp and lock her up, like he was saying, because everyone was against him. The establishment, the CIA, all those talking heads from the CIA that you see on CNN, and the FBI, Comey, Brennan, they were all against him. And so he was up against such resistance by the deep state and all of those guys that he wasn't able to quite drain the swamp. But now he'll just go right ahead and do it despite any resistance from the CIA and the FBI and all those other deep state apparatuses. Okay. So what about Operation Warp Speed? Now that that has been proven to be true, by the results and the consequences of died suddenly in those numbers that are coming up every day, increasing every day. He had to do that. He was surrounded by people that made him, and he really didn't have much choice in the matter. The bureaucracy, the embedded bureaucrats that aren't elected, kind of wield more power because they stay in power for 30 years and presidents come and go every 4 years. You can't give him that excuse on Operation Warp Speed. He comes out and proudly boasts, I was the one that brought you the vaccine. I leaned on the FDA so hard, like they've never been leaned on before. I'm the progenitor. I am the one guy that brought you the vaccine. He's real proud of it. And you can see what the results of that are in these blood clots that aren't even made out of blood. Yet you still support him? That's cognitive dissonance. Because you don't want to reassess and reevaluate and reformulate your self-image and your worldview, your cosmology, or your political ideology. You just kind of forget about that and support all these other things. And don't pay attention to that one thing over there, like the whole warp speed. Yeah, I still support Trump, says the people like David Nino Rodriguez that are demonstrating a level of cognitive dissonance that is pure mental illness. Because if you can't take this into account and you have to discount that part in order to continue supporting him, because that doesn't resonate with all the things you say you stand for and believe in and support, because that doesn't resonate and vibe and jive with all the rest of the stuff, you have to engage in cognitive dissonance, resonance and dissonance. And that doesn't have a resonance with what you support. So you engage in mental dissonance. You disintegrate your character. You don't have integrity of character if you disregard that little, let's just not pay attention to that little detail, that whole warp speed thing. Let's just support everything else that he says, all of his rhetoric. Not his actions and what he actually did for the 4 years while he was in there. Let's support everything he says he's going to do in the next round. And let's forget about what he actually did. Operation Warp Speed. I got some neighbors. They're probably looking at me a little bit weird. I should probably quiet it down a little. People like David Nino Rodriguez and those Patriot Pacification Program people that he brings on encourage that cognitive dissonance. But what we might see now is the Q-tard's wet dream. The Q people, the white hats are going to come gallivanting in on their steed with their lance and spear the deep state right in the chest. They're just waiting for their right moment to move. Well, now you might see that. And all those Q-tards will support it and forget all about warp speed. And he'll be rounding people up and throwing them in Gitmo with no trial. And all of his supporters will support him in doing it. The same people that before he got shot in the ear would have said, whoa, we have our constitutional rights to privacy. You can't just look at everyone's email and openly spy on us all. Like after 9/11 when the Department of Homeland Security took over all the other intelligence agencies and brought them under one umbrella. And suddenly all those rights and freedoms that you held so high in such high esteem and high regard, those all went out the window in the name of this emergency. Likewise, now that they tried to put him in jail, they tried to lock him up under a kangaroo court system, they even tried to kill him, but they missed by a millimeter. So he's justified in completely circumventing all previous standards and status quo of the constitutional rights. That shit goes out the window now. Round them up. Drain the swamp. Anyone who you declare deep state, Trump, we're with you. We're against them. We'll stand behind you while you do this witch hunt. That's what's coming.